Everybody, this is Ask Me Anything About Politics. So, if you got any questions about politics, just let me know in the chat and I will do my best to give you a great answer. I know that politics can be really weird when you're first trying to learn about it. I know that politics can be very confusing, especially right now with all of the misinformation that is rampant and the propaganda campaigns that are being waged on social media. It's a real minefield to try to work your way through. And so you can use this show as a way of figuring all that stuff out. This is the place where you can ask all the questions that you were too embarrassed to ask in other forums. So yeah, no such thing as a dumb question. Just ask away, throw it in the comments, and I will do my best to give you an objective and sincere answer. This is not a fighty show. This is not a show where I call people up and then we yell at each other about our political opinions, and then I prove that other people are stupider than me or anything like that. This is not that show. There's no owning on this show. There's no debating on this show. It is just good faith engagement in politics and trying to get everybody engaged and educated about what our government is doing and ways that we can help and be more involved. So I am hoping that y'all will use this show as a resource for getting your foot in the door of politics and learning all the things about politics that we didn't learn when we were in high school and shit like that. So yeah, just throw your questions in the comments, and we'll get to it. No such thing as a dumb question. I don't believe in making fun of people for trying to learn new things. And yeah, there's no roasting, there's no debating, there's no judgment. There was a time when I didn't know too much about politics, so I have a lot of sympathy for people who are still trying to figure out things like what reconciliation is, or what the filibuster is, or what a continuing resolution is, and stuff like that. So yeah, you can ask a question about politics in general, or a more specific question about our current political atmosphere. If you saw something on the internet and you were like, I don't know if that's accurate, you can ask me. I'll probably be able to tell you if it's real or not. And maybe you're somebody on the right and you've always wanted to ask a person on the left a question. You got a left leaning person here, you got a Democrat, you got a progressive right here that you can ask your question to. And there's no judgments, there's no roasting, there's no debating. What's up, Roslyn? Good to see you again. So yeah, any questions, just throw them in the chat. No such thing as a dumb question. There's no fights here. There's no judgments. There's no roasting. There's no debating. I don't make fun of people for not knowing things or having different political opinions than me. I'm not trying to own anybody or call anybody stupid. I am just here to answer all of your good faith questions about politics. X Just Joy X says, hi. When we call our senators, do they track the results, and is there any proof? They do track the results. I don't know if they report that back to their constituents at all. But everybody who has worked as a congressional staffer will tell you that they track the results of those calls. Europe says, what's really going on in our politics? What's really going on is that the billionaire class has been funneling billions of dollars of dark money into both political campaigns and misinformation and propaganda campaigns on social media. And so we have to be really vigilant about what we accept as fact. Local X says, why are liberals and conservatives fundamentally opposed? Where did it start in history? So obviously politics is much more complicated than just left and right, but left and right is kind of like around the way that we break down people's beliefs and things. And there's a lot of consistency there where the people on the left believe, in using the power of the government to help people, and the people on the right are a little bit more like dismantle the government and just the free market handle everything, and the people on the left are a little bit more like, we should be trying new things, and the people on the right are a little bit more like just keep things the way they are. But the way that political ideology has traversed through American history is massive and varied and complicated. So I would just say, if that's something that you're interested in, pick up a book on American history or something like that. User a bunch of numbers says, how bad are Russian bot farms in politics? I think the worst thing about them is that they're no longer just Russians doing it. That anybody who has $1 billion can push narratives on social media that are complete and utter bullshit. But yeah, it's a big deal. It's a big deal. It's a big problem. It's the problem, I would argue. Mia, great to see you again. He says, "Do you think the American political system is salvageable or needs a complete overhaul?" It is salvageable because that is it's built into the system that it's salvageable. You know, if we wanted to get rid of every single politician that was currently elected, we can do that basically every 2 to 4 years. You know, it is just getting people to actually go out and vote that people think that there's something, you know, intransigent about our politics. Alrighty, Victor Chillin says thoughts on Vance if he were to take over. Vance is an extremely dangerous person, but he's also has exactly zero charisma and charm. So I believe that if Trump passes away in the near future, then we will see a decrease in the MAGA movement. We will have to be vigilant against the Vance administration because of how, you know, damaging he personally can be. But yeah, I still think it's a net positive for the world. You know, X Just Joy X says lobbying should be banned. Do you agree? I don't know about banning. Like, I think there is value to a system where people who are experts in a certain field or people that own businesses can talk to politicians about their businesses or their field and give them sort of like the benefit of the expertise. I think that lobbying, the way that it currently works, should be banned, where people basically, you know, buy really expensive lunches or dinners for politicians, which, you know, sort of like, so that it means that the people that have the most money have the most access, and that's not, you know, that is not a beneficial system. So yeah, heavily regulated, heavily overhauled, but I don't know if we need to ban it just yet. Let's see here. Voodoo Child says, "Are we good with Dems flipping the seats?" We are, if people like you and me do the work of flipping those seats. Voodoo Child, we can't just sit on our hands and hope that everybody's going to vote the right way. We got to go out there and convince people to vote the right way. Isaiah Official says, "How did we get so far from Bill Clinton almost wiping out the national debt?" We had 8 years of George W. Bush and Mitch McConnell and a whole bunch of other Republicans cutting taxes for the billionaire class and giant corporations and, you know, severely increasing our national debt and deficit. That's how. AZ says, "Is Trump dead?" I won't believe it until I see it. Chris says, "How do I stop being dumb?" Read a book. Voodoo Child says, "Do you think Pence will jump back in?" Mike Pence? No, I think he's done. Jin says, "Our politicians are bought and paid for, both Democrats and Republicans. They don't work for the people." That is an inaccurate thing that you said, Jin. There are better politicians and worse politicians. There are corrupt politicians and non-corrupt politicians. And the Republican Party is way worse on the issue of corruption and money in politics, whereas the platform of the Democratic Party is to get money out of politics. The platform of the Republican Party is to put more money into politics. Danny is terrible. Great to see you again. Do you think Trump is actually sick, though? The bruises are a bit concerning, but I don't know. You know, what I know from having experience with old people is that the thing that you think, like, you look at them and you're like, this person's got hours left, that can be years, you know. But then you also look at an old person who's like, yeah, they still got life in them, and then they're dead tomorrow. So, you know, it can be anything. I've got no idea. Junior says, "You voted for Kamala." Absolutely, proudly. You can put that on my obituary. Az's says, "I guess Trump is making up this show and is disappearing on purpose. What do you think?" No, I don't think that he wants people to think he's dead. I think that you know, he's just an old person who likes to golf and you know, doesn't like to do his job. David Robinson says, "He just said someone dying would be good. That's terrible." Yeah, I think Trump dying would be good. I think when bad people die, it's good, David Robinson. I really don't understand why you think that is not an appropriate thing to say or do. All right, Junior just says Democrats are done, so that's not a question. So that is a block. I don't care if you have different political opinions than me, but just actually ask a question, be part of the conversation. Young Zo says, "Thoughts on head of CDC leaving?" You know, there's an open debate as to whether the move is to resign in protest or the move is to stick around and force them to fire you. You know, just whatever gums up the works for the Trump administration, whatever gets enough eyeballs onto the issue. Because right now, everybody that's leaving the CDC is like, you can no longer trust the CDC. You can no longer trust the medical advice that is coming out of there. The health and safety advice that's coming out of the CDC is no longer reliable, accurate, free of bias, it's scientific, etc. And that should be wildly concerning to every single person in America. GI Robot says opinion on capitalism. I'm sure there's some value to capitalism. I'm not prepared to argue in favor of it. I think that living in America, we see many examples of capitalism going wrong and being harmful. You know, it's like, oh, we decided to put the money in charge, and for some reason it's not working out great, or people are buying yachts because they denied people their cancer treatments. You know, like it doesn't seem like the move. I don't. Oh, I also don't believe in a fully socialist or communist system. I believe in a mixed model like they have in Norway and Sweden. Youngzo says, how long do you think it will take to recover from this in terms of leading scientific research? Youngzo, it just depends on how much work people like you and me do. If lots of people do lots of work, then we can get out of this lickety split. But if lots of people just stay on the sidelines and hope that somebody smarter or better comes to save the day, then progress will be slow and difficult. Sanya says, what do you think about free healthcare? I'm for it. It's cheaper. It's better. The only issue with free healthcare is the transition from our current system to free healthcare, which will be a big and hard, long slog, especially because there will be people in the Republican Party who will be doing everything they can to block it and make it harder. There'll be people in the billionaire class who will be doing everything they can to block it and make it harder. And then the billionaire class and the Republican Party are going to be out there talking about how free healthcare is the reason why all this shit's going wrong right now, when really it's just that transitioning a massive system of healthcare for 330 million people is hard and difficult, and mistakes are going to be made. So I hope that everybody who is an advocate for universal healthcare, the way that I'm an advocate for it, is also in the same breath recognizing and informing people to expect it to be difficult, to expect it to be hard. But like many hard things, it is still worth doing. Sonia says, isn't California the richest state? Why don't they have free healthcare? I believe it's just a logistical issue, like it's very difficult. And, I guess maybe the dollars aren't there. And yeah, I don't know. I haven't really dug into that. I don't know what the controversy is there. But yeah, New York State was looking at it a little while ago. But yeah, I just think it's a really difficult problem to solve if you're going to do it on a statewide level. Right. Bigfoot Bro, please don't put things like that in the chat. Twink Stomper says, don't stomp twinks. They're perfectly nice people. Do you believe that AIPAC can, and by that extent, the state of Israel has a grip on the U.S. government? They have a lot of influence on the U.S. government, but I don't think that they're like fully controlling the U.S. government. But anybody that has a lot of money can control the U.S. government, and so we need to remove the influence of people with money from the government, plain and simple. Let's see here. Bigfoot Bro says, "Don't censure me, bro. You spelled censure wrong." Voodoo Child says, "Why are they saying Newsom hurt California?" So there are some very legitimate criticisms that you can make around Newsom as a governor, but the problems that people blame on Newsom are not necessarily his fault. A lot of these problems, were decades in the making, and we cannot expect one 8-year term governor to be able to solve all of them. Like, you might as well blame it on Arnold Schwarzenegger, if you're going to blame it on anybody. So yeah, I think that a lot of the rhetoric around Gavin Newsom is really hyperbolic and unproductive. He's fine. He's fine. I really like the way that he is messaging right now. I really like the trolling that he's doing of the Trump administration. He is 100% not my first choice for who will win the Democratic primary. But if he is, I am perfectly happy voting for him in the general election because, as I said, he's fine. He did some good things. He did some bad things. I have exactly zero problem voting for him over any Republican that could be running against him. All right. Bareface says Trump did more in 100 days than Newsom has done in decades. He's done more damage than Newsom has done in decades. So there you go. Cheerio says 67. What a weird thing to spam the comments. Youngzo says, why does everybody just listen to Trump? He seems like a demented old man and not hard to go against. So Youngzo, excuse me. There are people have written entire books about, the Trump administration and how Trump has managed to, attract and charm a certain percentage of this population and kind of like take over the Republican Party from the outside. So it's complicated. There are a lot of factors. I think what I would chalk it up to is not only does Donald Trump, not only was his brain pickled by Fox News the same way that all of his fans are. So, they speak the same language, like he has the same fake grievances and believes in the same fake problems as everybody in his base because they watch the same TV show. But in addition to that, there is a massive apparatus that assists with the Republican Party. And it is right wing propaganda, it is electoral systems, it is campaign finance loopholes. It is just any charismatic right wing figure has a playbook and a team ready to support them with unlimited funds whenever they decide to appear. And so I think Trump was probably just taking advantage of a system that was ready for him, that was prepared for him to succeed. Alrighty, Java Phoenix says, "Is Trump trying to control Greenland and why? And is Trump against trans in the military and why?" So Trump is an anti-trans politician. I don't know if he has any specific issues with trans people, but it's very valuable for him politically because that riles up his base. And so he's going to govern as somebody who is anti-trans because it's helpful for him politically. And what's he doing with Greenland? So the Trump administration, Greenland and Norway say that they have evidence that the Trump administration is trying to run an influence operation in Greenland, where they try to convince the population of Greenland that it would be better if they were a part of America, and because as it stands, Greenland does not want to be part of America, and so it would be difficult for America to take Greenland, and so Norway and Greenland are upset about this, and they are fighting back against it. And I would be much more concerned about the warships that we've sent to the coast of Venezuela for some fucking reason. Len says, "Who is more guilty of going after their political opponents with lawfare, Democrats or Republicans?" It's not even fucking close, Len. It is Republicans. Full stop. Democrats have done zero lawfare. Republicans have done and are current doing lots of lawfare. So, it's like you're asking me, like, who flies the most, Superman or my cat? It's like Superman. Superman flies the most. The Republican Party is doing way more lawfare and corruption than the Democratic Party. Alrighty, let's see here. All right. David Robinson says people need to stop treating voting for a third party as a throwaway vote, so politics isn't sides. David Robinson, voting for a third party until we have ranked choice voting for a third party is a throwaway vote. David Robinson, and there's no math that says that it isn't. And I would encourage you to not vote third party until we have ranked choice voting. And I would encourage you to, if you want ranked choice voting, then you got to vote for Democrats because the Republicans are literally trying to make ranked choice voting illegal. Not showing my pretty faces. What do you mean by lawfare exactly? So lawfare is kind of like a blanket term. Not showing my pretty face for using the law strategically, but not justly. Where you've got one person who is stabbing a guy and you've got one person who's jaywalking, and you decide to go after the jaywalking person just because you don't like them more. That would be an example of lawfare. The Trump administration and Trump did a lot of crimes when they were in office during their first term, and so they were being sued and were indicted over 90 times after he was out of office. And Republicans looked at that and said, that's lawfare. You are only going after Trump because you don't like him, because he's your political opponent. But that is wildly inaccurate. He did the crimes. We saw him do the crimes. He did them out in the open. And when you do crimes, you get indicted. That's just how that works. Conversely, what we are currently seeing is a Justice Department that is being run by people who do not care if you actually did a crime or not. They just don't like you if you are brown or a Democrat or Barack Obama or Joe Biden or Hunter Biden or whatever. If they don't like you, they will throw a case against you. And so going after people like Adam Schiff for real estate issues, or saying that Barack Obama was involved in the Russia hoax after he was out of office. Like, all of that is like full on bullshit. There is like literal zero substance to it, and yet the Republican Party is still pushing that line. That's lawfare. That's classic lawfare. All right, thermite residue was found on 9/11. All right, Bigfoot, congratulations, you are out of here. Scrolling down to the bottom. Dan Blackroyd, excellent to see you again. Let's see here. ASCII full of stars 707 says, I know a cop that looks like you. LOL. Like, I guess you know a really good looking cop then. David Robinson said, if 15% of the population votes third party, it will give them more power for future elections. Yeah, but where are those votes going to come from? Are they going to come from the Republican Party? Are they going to come from the Democratic Party? When those 15% votes go to whichever candidates, then the other candidate will have an advantage in that election, you know? And again, the easiest way to do this, David Robinson, is to vote for Democrats and then get them to vote in ranked choice voting nationally. That's how you can get your third party votes without actually being a spoiler, you know? It's very simple. Holographo says, I don't understand why Trump is having these law firms do pro bono work. What's the connection? So the Trump administration is threatening to use the power of the government to either make the job of those law firms difficult or impossible. These law firms, they need clients to be able to make money, to afford to pay their lawyers and their electric bill and shit like that. And the Trump administration is saying that we are going to illegally use the power of the government to hurt your ability to get clients, try cases, etc. And so in order to not have that happen, these law firms basically bribed him. They said, well, we'll give you like, you know, $20 million of free legal work if you please don't use the power of the government to hurt us. And then he was like, all right, cool, deal, sweet. That's the reason why he's using them, is because it's essentially free. David Robinson says, Kamala Harris was not a competent presidential candidate. She didn't even have a proper interview. Congratulations, David Robinson. You are out of here. You do not get to make baseless claims about Kamala Harris, who is a fully competent human being who would have been an excellent president, with your fucking both sides nonsense. You're fucking, yeah, good Lord. Couldn't have gotten, what do you call it? Couldn't have gotten quicker. You couldn't have gotten rid of you fast enough. Anonymous 101 says, did you look into what I said? You know, Anonymous, I forgot where we left off our conversation. Honestly, I thought that I said the last thing. I thought it was your turn to respond, but I guess I have to go back into my DMs and see. Len says the $500 million judgment against Trump was thrown out. Doesn't that mean it was a BS case? So not necessarily, Len. There are a bunch of different reasons why that judgment may or may not have been thrown out. So number one, the penalty was thrown out, not the judgment. That means that the judge thought that $500 million was the wrong amount to fine Trump for the things that he did wrong, but he didn't like reverse the decision. Like, Trump was still found guilty of the crime. The judge was just like, $500 million is too much, I guess. And, you know, I'm not 100% sure. There are a couple of reasons why they might have done that. The reason that the judge stated was that they did not believe, I don't know if it was a guy or a girl. They didn't believe that the number was sort of like calculated fairly or accurately, or had any connection to the actual crimes that the Trump administration did. I find that to be a little sus, you know, because I don't really think that the AG of New York State plays loosey-goosey. They're going to go through all that work to discover that Trump was committing massive financial fraud and tax fraud and insurance fraud, and then not have a substantive reason for assigning a certain number to be the punishment. You know, so it's possible that this is just a very sympathetic Trump judge. You know, there are judges out there that are like that. More so now, since he appointed so many of them, you know. Java Phoenix says, what do you think will be the governor of Chicago's response if Trump puts the military in Chicago? So I don't know what mechanisms J.B. Pritzker is planning to try to fight against, you know, Trump sending the military into Chicago. From what we've seen from the military deployments in Los Angeles and D.C., it seems like the effect is just that people don't go out of their houses because they're scared. There haven't been, like any mass demonstrations or violent uprisings against the National Guard being in those cities. They just been like, we're scared. We don't like you being here. We don't like your big ass fucking assault rifles being here. You're not doing anything. You're not stopping any crime. All you are doing is making us worried when we leave the house. So yeah, I don't know. JB Prisker, he seems like a pretty sharp cookie. So yeah, I hope that he has something up his sleeve. But yeah, I don't know what it is. Danny is terrible. Says, any advice for the small guy? That's me on what I can do to help the fight. I want to do the work. Danny is terrible. Have you gone to my Discord? Because I have a little thread posted about what the work is. Oh, by the way, Java Phoenix, you said governor of Chicago, but it is the governor of Illinois that we're talking about, right? Chicago is the city. Cadence says every single rich person uses the same tax evasion BS that Trump got charged. It was all media BS. So the answer there, Cadence, is not to let Trump also get away with it, is to stop letting anyone get away with it. And Trump can be the first person that's not getting away with it. But then we can build off of that, Cadence. Russo. Yeah, I don't really view that as, what do you call it? I don't really view that as the gotcha that you think it is. Already, ASCII full of stars says, go to Afghanistan. That's your new home since 2021. What the hell does that mean? I'm starting to think that you might not be here in good faith, ASCII full of stars. Mia's LV Adventure says, why don't people realize what Antifa is? Misinformation and propaganda. I left you on red, Anonymous. Oh no, I gotta get back into our chat and see where things are. ASCII full of stars says liberals can't communicate without getting angry. Well, I guess answer my question. Fucking ASCII full of stars. See you fucking later, man. Taliban loves liberals, says ASCII full of stars. No, I mean, Republicans gave Afghanistan to the Taliban, so they probably love Trump and Republicans way more than they love Democrats. Sonia says, I get you're biased, but not throwing shade at your own party is crazy to me, to be honest. So I don't really believe that I am more biased than any human being, Sonia. I try to deliver my information as objectively as I possibly can. And I do throw shade at my own party, but I think that it's a little bit unproductive to focus on what the Democratic Party is doing wrong when the Republican Party is doing so much worse work, and they're the ones that are currently in power. There is a movement funded by the billionaire class to overhype negative coverage of the Democratic Party to make it seem like both parties are equally bad. But that's a wildly inaccurate thing to say, that the parties are equally bad. The politicians on the left are better than the politicians on the right. The platform on the left is better than the platform on the right. The outcomes, both on the state and federal level, are better when the left is in charge versus when the right is in charge. So yeah, the analogy that I always use for this is, focusing on the Democratic Party when the Republican Party is currently doing all this shit that they're doing is a little bit like you own a 7-Eleven and you're yelling at kids who are reading magazines without paying for them while a dude is stabbing you in the throat. Like, you really got to get your priorities in order. Let's see here. Danny is Terrible says, why do you think MAGA cultists can never understand the bad being done? Misinformation and propaganda. It's a hell of a drug. There is a sense of community also in right-wing politics that the people who have escaped it have talked about it. And it's like, every one of your friends and your parents, everybody that loves you, everybody that you respect, your church, your professors, everybody is repeating the party line. And even if you start to see the light, you start to think to yourself, like, am I willing to get rid of everything? My entire community, everybody that I know and love, because everybody is full of shit, and some people make that calculation and dip, and some people don't, but it's hard. I think that we need to have radical empathy for everybody who is in who has been fooled into being a right-wing voter, because propaganda, brainwashing, misinformation, it works, and it's hard to extricate yourself from a community like that. Moto Nomad says, thoughts on a constitutional monarchy? I'm against monarchy. Moto Nomad says, radical empathy is just sympathy. I don't think that's accurate. JD Hendry says, fooled how? Well, there's a lot of misinformation and propaganda that constantly hypes up and helps the Republican Party to get electoral power. But it's based on lies, like it's built on lies. There's no connection to the rhetoric and how they actually govern. There's no connection to reality. Like the data sets that they use are cherry picked and inaccurate. The science they use is inaccurate. The talking points they use are inaccurate. If you look at talking heads like Charlie Cook or Kirk on PolitiFact, they have across the board pants on fire ratings. Fox News has been found to be like only 20% accurate. So if these people are making their political choices based on what they're seeing in right-wing media and on right-wing Facebook and shit like that, then they're being lied to, and they're falling for it. But I don't really have a lot of I have a lot of sympathy for people falling for it because people are spending billions of dollars to make them fall for it. Let's see here. JD Henry says, okay, what lies? I mean, pick your poison, man. Like, tell me an issue and I'll tell you how the right is lying about it. Mel, happy Labor Day to you. Hapless says, how is a felon elected and how is he getting away with everything? The reason why he is getting away with it is because everybody that would stop him is a Republican right now, and the Republican Party is letting Trump get away with things because they are either on board with the fascist, illegal, barbaric, corrupt shit that he is doing, or they're too scared of him to stand up to him. And they're both bad. So both of them are reasons to unelect every single one of them. And how is a felon elected? Misinformation and propaganda. Alrighty, let's see here. JD Henry says, is Pants on Fire left-leaning? Pants on Fire is not left-leaning, JD Henry. Right, let's see here. Moto Domad says, empathy encompasses reflecting from their position, but what you described sounds like pity. Moto Nomad, I have exactly zero interest in having a semantic argument with you about what empathy means. So yeah, just don't yell at people that vote Republican is what I'm saying. Recognize that there, but for the grace of God go I. Alrighty. JD Henry, still waiting on you to give me a single fucking topic that you would like me to tell you about how the Republican Party lies about it. I'll give you two right away, JD. You don't actually have to say anything. I'll go ahead and provide that for you. Java Phoenix says, if Lisa Cook was fired because of allegations of fraud, why isn't Trump fired for the same? Again, that's straight lawfare. It is choosing where to direct the eye of Justice Department, not based on who's doing crimes, but who do we want to throw in jail, and then shielding the people that you like from any kind of legal consequences for the things that you are doing. All right, JD Henry, here are my two main Republicans are liars things. All right, trickle-down economics and climate change. Those are both things that we can see what the reality is. Like, we know that trickle-down economics doesn't work because we have been cutting taxes for the billionaire class massively ever since the Reagan administration. And the only thing that has happened is that more Americans are in poverty, and there's like a handful of people who can afford to buy a dozen private jets and private yachts and mega golden mansions and eat fucking caviar and cocaine 3 meals a day. But the Republican Party is saying that trickle-down economics is still the thing. That is still the thing that they are trying to do. So they're obviously lying about that because I know. Look outside, And climate change, the Republican Party has been saying for decades, is fake. It's not a real thing. It's a hoax started by China, et cetera, et cetera. But we can all look outside the window and see that it is hotter than it used to be, and that the storms are worse than they used to be, and that insects that normally were not here, they were further south, are now here because the world is getting warmer, and farmers are having to plant their crops further north, and people that live by the coast, the water keeps getting closer to their house and shit like that, And the Republican Party is still saying that climate change is not real. So, they're liars. They're liars. They're liars. They're liars. JD Henry says, Dems have been saying the world is ending in 5 years for 30 years. That is inaccurate, JD Henry. And ask a question or I'm going to boot you. Mia's LV Adventure says, and in Las Vegas, we aren't even getting monsoon season anymore. Oh, that's interesting. How about that? Dr. Marcus says, most don't even understand trickle-down economics. Ace, good to see you again. Right. Cadence, Sir Ross says, you should look You should look every other country's carbon emissions versus the United States. I don't care what every other country's carbon emissions are. I believe we are like number one in terms of gas and oil consumption and shit like that. Cade and Sir Ross. And so, yeah, I don't give a shit. I don't give a shit if other countries are pumping out lots of fossil fuels. We should stop. And by the way, China is printing like 2 nuclear reactors worth of solar panels a day while we're fucking defunding wind farms that are 75% built. You know, the waste, fraud, and abuse of the Trump administration is unfucking paralleled. Ace says, what do you think of Greta and the whole flotilla that is happening right now? I mean, I like Greta Thunberg. You know, I don't really give a shit if she does, you know, things that people say are, what do you call it? People say that she's doing like publicity stunts or whatever. Like, that's the whole fucking point. Like, we need attention on this issue. It has gone unfucked with for way too long. So yeah, let's have a fucking young person who's passionate about this issue, who is widely known with lots of name ID, hyping up this issue, because we need people hyping up this issue because it's a fucking emergency. Let's see here. Can't tell countries to stop if you don't stop yourself. Yeah, you know, absolutely. Alrighty, questions are a little light today, everybody. Okay. Fogwar Productions, great to see you again. I've heard you mention his name often, but who's Peter Thiel? Peter Thiel is a tech bro billionaire who is behind companies like Palantir. I believe he was part of the original team for PayPal. He is extremely, he has some very, very weird beliefs. Like, he doesn't believe in democracy. He believes that he is part of like a new race of super intelligent beings that should be our dictators, and that tech will solve everything, and that Greta Thunberg is the devil. He believes that she's the devil because she's using an anti-technology philosophy of stopping climate change, and it's like the dude's beliefs are fucking wild. He is propping up right-wing politicians like J.D. Vance to try to, you know, take over cities and turn them into tech dictatorships and shit like that. He's a fucking weird dude. He looks like a skinnier version of the alien in Men in Black when he jumped into that dude's body and was wearing his skin like a suit. You know, he really does look like a fucking wizard person. Yeah. Yeah. Alrighty. Love Life says, is it hard to forgive Trump voters who still support him? It's hard, you know, but that's part of the work, I think, you know, and I don't think that it benefits anybody to be dogmatic about, you know, saying you suck forever because of that thing that you did. You know, you might believe it deep down in your heart, you know, for some people. I certainly believe it, but I don't think it's productive to have that attitude. I think it's much more productive to be the all right, you made a mistake, let's work on fixing it kind of attitude, you know. All right. Cade and Sir Ross says, and then a wind farm only lasts like 15 years and can never be reused. Cade and Sir Ross, I don't believe that you are getting your news from accurate places, because all of the things that you are saying are kind of like cherry-picked right-wing talking points that are trying to like make green energy or the left seem bad. Like, they're all cognitive dissonances and like debate tricks to just try to like devalue the correct position, you know. So if you want to engage in good faith, like I'm happy to, but you can't just put right-wing propaganda talking points into my chat. Moto Nomads, for example, is getting blocked also. All right, scrolling down to the bottom. Right, I'm a blue-collar brother. I've built wind farm. They're a good idea, but they aren't the correct idea. Okay, Cadence or Ross, my point stays the same. Ask a question or I'm going to boot you, because, again, I don't care for that nonsense on my live stream. TB Collect says, what do you think about Trump stopping the drug cartels? He's not stopping the drug cartels. He's actually empowering the drug cartels. He has made immigration basically impossible unless you are rich or white, which drives more people to Coyotes to get across the border. which gives more money and power to the cartel. The way that he is trying to use American military on foreign soil to deal with the cartel is going to increase tensions with our neighboring countries. It is not allowed by international law. It is not going to increase peace, and I'm not confident that it will actually hurt the cartel all that much. Right, Kaiser Sose says, who do you see the Dems putting up in 2028? The Dems aren't going to put up anybody. People are going to vote in the primary, and whoever wins the primary will be the nominee. User a bunch of numbers says, how true is the claim that affirmative action was harmful to Asian Americans? I don't believe that it was. Lucky Penny says, will chaos happen when Donald Trump croaks? It'll happen within the administration. There's going to be a power vacuum, and there's going to be a bunch of people trying to fill that vacuum. But I think there will probably be more of a dispersal effect where people will not know where to put their energy and faith. That's what happens every time a cult leader dies. Mel says, what do you think is going on with Russia, China, and India meeting? Basically, the Trump administration has ceded America's authority on the global stage. So now all these other massive nations like Russia, China, and India that are kind of like in the next best position to be the #1 global superpower, they are basically shutting America out. Like America was the alpha dog, and then America fucking took a sledgehammer to its own foot and weakened itself. And so now the next tier countries that are trying to take over the throne are basically conspiring to fucking do the final blow that will knock America down to a fucking third world status. So yeah, they're basically doing trade agreements. They're restructuring their bond markets and shit to remove the dollar as the reserve currency and deflate any faith that anybody has in the American markets and shit like that. It's so fucking stupid. Like America is becoming a worse country by factors for no fucking reason, just for the stupid fucking shit that Trump and his buddies are doing. Ready. User a bunch of numbers says, the $500 million fine, is there a way that some judge can revisit it so that Trump has some penalty? That I actually don't know. The podcast that I go to for answers like that is not on today because it's Labor Day. But hopefully there'll be an episode tomorrow and I'll be able to answer that question for you. Java Phoenix says, what is your opinion on raising the minimum wage versus inflation? It seems like an endless cycle to me. So the argument against raising the minimum wage is coming from the billionaire class. They don't want to have to pay us more. In the places that the minimum wage is higher, prices are not substantively higher than places where wages are lower. They're a little bit higher, but not by a lot, where we are paying people thousands of more dollars a year and the price of that burger is like 50 cents more or something like that. It is better for the economy in the long run to raise the minimum wage because it creates a larger consumer base. Because right now people are buying less because they can't afford to buy things. And the more that happens, the more there are going to be layoffs and, it is concerning. So, yeah, I say raise the minimum wage. Don't believe billionaire propaganda. Thank you for your questions, Mel. I appreciate you being here. Alrighty. Kaiser Sose says, why do Democrats pretend they don't know that the bulk of crime in red states are in blue cities? Kaiser Sose, I see you. I see what you're doing, but I'll answer your question. So I think it's very interesting the way that people on the right ascribe every issue to a Democratic politician, no matter what. So we know that the highest crime locations in America are in red states. They are cities in red states. And your argument is that the reason why they are high crime is that they are being controlled by Democrats. But that doesn't make any sense because Democrats are in charge of cities in blue states also. So by your logic, the mayor being a Democrat and the city legislature being a Democrat and the state legislature being a Democrat and the fucking governor of the state being a Democrat, that should increase the crime rate. But for some reason, the magic cocktail of creating violent crime is a red state and a blue city. You know, Occam's razor, you know, the simplest answer is often the correct one. It is much more likely that it's just red state policies that are creating the crime as opposed to blue state policies, because blue states don't have the same crime, you know? Right. BitNevo says, why are people like Arnold not aware that California's restrictions on the ballots and only for 5 years? I don't know what Arnold Schwarzenegger's fucking problem is with the redistricting plan. It seems pretty cut and dry to me that this is the exact thing that we should be doing. And so, yeah, you know, whereas Arnold Schwarzenegger is not a perfect person. He has made lots of mistakes in his life. I think that he's been on the right side of messaging over the past like 10-ish years. But I think that he's fucking off base on this one, bigly. Alrighty, scrolling up, scrolling up, scrolling up, scrolling up, scrolling up, scrolling up. Okay. Kasha says, any way we can get rid of Fox News? We have to get people to stop watching Fox News, Kasha. If you're the kind of person that has cable, call up your company and say, I don't want my cable dollars going to Fox News. I don't want Fox News in my cable package. Bennett Visuals, you got to change your keyboard back to English from whatever country you are twitching from. Bennett Visuals, I do not speak that language. Alrighty, let's see here. All right, yeah, we're light on questions today, so I might end up wrapping early, unless we get a little bit more engagement here on the live stream. Fox War Productions says it's mostly Gen X and Boomers that watch Fox News. All right, well, we gotta change that, you know. But even if we got rid of Fox News, it would still be right-wing propaganda would still be a massive issue on social media. Ben Shapiro, Tucker Carlson, they've all got fucking podcasts. Charlie Kirk, they've all got fucking podcasts and YouTube shows that are wildly popular. So, you know, just getting rid of Fox News is not going to solve everything, unfortunately. Terry S68 says, what is your take on Gaza? I support the population of both Palestine and Israel, and I am against the governing bodies of both Palestine and Israel. Both Hamas and the Netanyahu government of Israel are guilty of doing war crimes. The Netanyahu government has been found by multiple independent agencies, including those located in Israel, that they are doing a genocide. And so America should not be supporting either of those governing bodies. At the moment, we are only supporting Israel by sending them money and weapons. And so we should stop doing that. And the only party that is going to do that is the Democratic Party. The Republican Party is currently fully in charge, and they are sending even more weapons and assistance than the Biden administration was. So I would encourage everybody to recognize where worse is worse and better is better. Democrats are better on this issue. There are more Democrats who are voting to stop sending money and weapons to Israel. So we should all support Democrats, everybody. Right. Lindsay Reed says, will there ever be common sense gun laws? If we vote for politicians who will do common sense gun laws, Lindsay Reed. And it's not just enough for us to vote. We also have to get other people to vote as well. Fog War Productions, in your opinion, who is the worst world leader of your lifetime? I mean, that's got to be Trump. You know, it's got to be Trump. I don't know. There's other dictators who are worse for their populations and shit, but nobody has taken the fucking lead that America has had in influence and finance and tech and just fucking shoved it down the toilet. The most, you know, unenforced error in global politics in this millennia is Donald Trump ruining the reputation and economy of America. You know, he was fucking set up for success and he fucking ruined it. You know? Yeah. Yeah, it's unfucking believable, you know? There was 2 minutes left in the game and we were up by 50 and we still fucking lost because of that fucking ding dong. Alrighty, let's see here. Terry S says, but this weekend didn't Trump say everyone needs to leave Gaza? Yeah, he is advocating for ethnically cleansing Gaza, which is something that no Democrat has done. So again, better is better and worse is worse. Daniel D says gun rights were made back then because to shoot a single bullet took minutes, not for modern guns. I agree with that, Daniel D. All right, everybody, get in your final questions. But I want to say, until I get my final questions, that I really appreciate everybody being here, and I really appreciate all the support, all the questions, all the gifts, all the likes, all the shares, etc. Nolan says, "Do you think implementing ranked choice voting could be the path to moving away from fascist ideology?" I do believe, Nolan, that ranked choice voting is better, and I do believe that it will assist in some of the issues that we have with our politics. But it's important to recognize that ranked choice voting doesn't solve every problem. We had ranked choice voting in New York during the mayoral election, and they still elected Eric Adams. You know, there was a great progressive named Maya Wiley on the ballot. Ranked choice voting did not save that election one lick. So there's still work to do, even with ranked choice voting. So yeah, any questions or anything else that comes up while I'm not doing my live stream, everybody, hit me up. You know, you can email me through my website. You can find me on my Discord. My Discord is a great resource. There's great recommendations there for podcasts and books, and also things that you can do as a citizen to help our current political movement. And I hope and pray that everybody who watches this live stream is doing the work, you know. Tacos Ramon Mamma Mia says, hello, I have a question. Ask your question, Tacos. So yeah, you know, I have this project, I have this goal of unelecting every single Republican politician, of getting people to judge the Republican Party as harshly as we judge the Democratic Party, of getting people to recognize that better is better and worse is worse, and the government can and should be a tool that is used to make people's lives and the world better instead of just helping the fucking billionaire class make more money and afford more private jets and cocaine and shit like that. And I hope that you all will join me in that project. And I hope that if you know people who are not down with that project, who are not down with the project of unelecting every single Republican, that you will send them my way. I'm trying to start a podcast where I talk to people on a one-on-one basis, and I try to convince them to come to the light side of the force. And so if you know people like that, non-voters or people that don't follow politics or people that are like radical centrists who are not willing to state on the record that they want to unelect every Republican as soon as possible, please send them my way, and I'm happy to maintain their anonymity. If they don't want their name and face out there, we can work on that. So yeah, what else do I always do in my outros? And yeah, if you guys would like to support the channel financially, you can, but you do not have to. If you go to my website, you will find my store, and you'll also find my Patreon. I've got 5 patrons right now, and I'm so hype about it. So fucking cool to have 5 patrons. Let's see here. Yeah, buy things from the store, join the Patreon, send gifts on TikTok and Twitch and YouTube, and subscribe. All the ways that you can help out, I appreciate. Alrighty, Lindsay Reed says, have you seen Lindsey Graham's ads? Total Trump ass kiss. Yeah, that dude fucking sold his soul a long time ago, man. Fucking pathetic. Him and Marco Rubio both. Fog War Production says, you think ICE would have turned to Democrats into Second Amendment purists? I don't know. Like, is the solution to get into a fucking gunfight with a bunch of ICE agents? I don't know. I'm still on the side of nonviolent protests. Tacos Rome Mamma Mia says Israel said that they kill about Ubida. I'm not really sure what you're asking there. Tacos, can you clean up that question? Alrighty. Java Phoenix says, what are major things Trump has done or is doing that is corrupt? I need help vocalizing the facts. So Java Phoenix, I think one of the most important things that you can internalize is the reality that facts don't win arguments, that people are swayed by how you make them feel as opposed to the information that you put into their noodle. Now, convincing people it is important to have these data points as part of the convincing process. But the most important thing is giving people the space to be wrong without ridicule, without shame, giving people the golden parachute of just saying like, hey, it is okay for you to be misinformed about this thing. I would recommend reading a book called The Persuaders by Anand Giridharadas. He talks much more about that. But as far as like the specific corrupt things that Trump is doing right now, he is accepting bribes in exchange for clemency. So there are billionaires and billion-dollar companies right now that owe American people money for fraud or whatever, and Trump has commuted those penalties because they gave him a couple $1,000,000 or whatever. So he is literally taking money out of Americans' pockets and putting it into his own. Additionally, he has a cryptocurrency. Cryptocurrency is a market for dark money. It is a perfect vehicle for corruption. People from anywhere can give Trump unlimited amounts of money, and we will never find out. We will never know. It is unreal. The way that he is making money off of being president is wildly unconstitutional, illegal, unethical, shit like that. The fact that he accepted a $500 million private plane from Qatar is just some fucking blanket corruption right there, unfucking believable. Broad says, was there any substance with Trump's meeting with the South Korean president? Most likely not. Potentially, but most likely not is what I would say, because there's no substance to anything that Trump does. Lucky 13 says Pelosi ring a bell. Yeah, Pelosi trades stocks with insider knowledge, but you know who else does that? Lucky 13, every single Republican. Do you know who's currently in charge of the government right now? You know who could currently right now make it illegal for people in government to do insider trading? The Republican Party. They could, but they don't want to. Rick Scott is out there fucking full-throatedly saying that he does not think that he thinks it's fine for people in government to do insider trading, and that he is vehemently against any legislation that would stop that. Lucky 13. So are you aware of that, Lucky 13? Are you pushing the Pelosi is the only person doing insider trading narrative? Because it's wildly inaccurate. You should label your live as leftist time. Wow, weird how you just ignored all those things that I just said. Let's see here. Gern B. Canson says, careful there, Chief. Many stupid people will believe you, and hopefully Trump will sue you for slander and defamation. I mean, you can't sue people for slander and defamation if the things that you're saying are accurate. Gern B. Canston, but yeah. I don't know if you're being sarcastic or not, but ask a question or you're going to get blocked. Java Phoenix. Oh, wait, let's go over to Peter Kukla. Good to see you again. Did you see that they're now talking about pushing for compensation for the January 6th rioters? Yeah, that's fucking infuriating, as per usual. Java Phoenix says, with all that he's doing, why isn't he impeached? Trump pardoned people that invaded the Capitol. So Java Phoenix, the reason why he is suffering no consequences for the things that he has done is because there are people in power who are either on board with what he is doing or they're scared of him. Right now, the only people that could hold him accountable are the judiciary, which is run by the Supreme Court, which he sat 3 of the justices. And so they are constantly ruling in his favor and making it easier for him to avoid accountability. And Congress, which is currently being controlled by the Republican Party. And so it is the Republicans' fault. It is the fault of the Republican Party and current elected Republicans that nothing is happening to Trump, even though he is doing wildly barbaric, illegal, unconstitutional, corrupt, unethical shit. And it is hurting all of us. Is defunding cancer research for children. Like, what the fucking fuck? Building concentration camp. We got to defund everything so that we can increase ICE's budget 360% and build more fucking data centers for AI that doesn't work. Like, are you out of your fucking minds? Republicans are letting it all happen. They are asleep at the fucking wheel. Their job as the legislative is to be a check on unchecked executive power, and they are just not doing that. Alrighty, let's see here. Hey, I got a new subscriber. That's pretty cool. All right, everybody. Yeah, looks like we have reached the end of our questions. So, thank you for being here again. My regular streaming schedule is Monday through Friday, starting around 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. So I hope that you guys will come back and check me out again. Thank you for being here. Thank you for the questions. Thank you for the the gifts and the likes and the shares and subscribes. I appreciate all of it. Do the work. Be good to yourselves. Self-care is part of the work. And I will see you guys tomorrow. Same bat time, same bat channel. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye. Goodbye. Goodbye.